There comes a time in your life when silence speaks louder than words, when distance is the only answer, and when walking away is the strongest form of self-respect. You've been taught to always be kind, to always be there, to always answer the call, reply to the message, open your door and soften your voice, because that's what good people do. But no one ever told you that being good doesn't mean being available. You see, your presence is powerful, but only when it's not taken for granted. When you stop being available, people begin to notice. Not because you've become someone else, but because they finally realize who you truly were all along. When you make yourself constantly available to others, always picking up the phone, always saying yes, always showing up whether you feel like it or not, over time, the people around you begin to see that availability not as kindness, but as a given. They stop appreciating it. They stop noticing the effort you're putting in. Your presence becomes expected, not valued. The truth is, human nature tends to take the familiar for granted. When someone is always there, they stop feeling special. They blend into the background of daily life, like a chair in the room, useful but unnoticed. This is how your constant availability begins to work against you. What once made you stand out becomes the very reason others overlook your worth. You give your time, your energy, your attention, and instead of appreciation, you begin to receive less and less in return. Not because those around you are always malicious, but because they become numb to what they don't have to work for. The easiest things to access are often the easiest to ignore. People begin to assume that you'll always be there. They know you'll answer that late-night message. They know you'll cancel your plans to make time for them. And the more you do this, the more they subconsciously believe that your time doesn't cost anything, that your presence doesn't require effort, that your energy is unlimited and free. But it's not. Your time is life. Your energy is finite. And when you give it away without boundaries, people stop seeing it as a gift. They treat it as something owed. This is not about blaming others. It's about realizing a fundamental truth. What you tolerate becomes your standard. If you're always accessible, always agreeable, always accommodating, you send a message without saying a word. That message says, "My needs come second. My rest can wait. My peace is negotiable." And once people receive that message, they stop asking if you're okay. They stop checking if you're overwhelmed. They just keep taking, not out of cruelty, but out of conditioned expectation. In that way, your constant availability begins to strip away your identity. You become the helper, the fixer, the listener. But what about you? What about your silence? Your needs? Your emotional limits? If you never let people see that you also get tired, that you also need space, then they will never know. They will believe the version of you that you've trained them to see, the one who never says no. Eventually, resentment grows, not because others are unkind, but because you have betrayed yourself. Every time you say yes when you mean no, every time you show up when you're exhausted, you are teaching others that your boundaries are imaginary. You're handing out pieces of yourself until you have nothing left to give, and still wondering why no one is pouring back into you. But how can they when they've never seen you empty? This is why availability must come with limits. Your kindness should have structure. Your love should not cost your peace. You must remember that people often value what they have to earn. When your time and presence are no longer automatic, others are forced to consider them. They pause. They reflect. They ask. That pause is where respect begins. Not when you shout, not when you argue, but when you simply stop showing up without being appreciated. Being less available doesn't mean becoming cold or distant. It means honoring yourself enough to choose when and where you offer your energy. It means making your presence meaningful by not giving it away so freely. It means recognizing that the people who truly care for you will respect your boundaries, not resent them. There's a quiet strength in setting boundaries. It's not about building walls or shutting people out. It's about protecting your peace, your energy, your dignity. Yet so often boundaries are misunderstood. People see them as selfish, as cold, as unkind. But that couldn't be further from the truth. Boundaries are not rejections. They are affirmations of your worth, your values, your priorities. When you say, "I can't do this right now," or "this doesn't work for me," you are not pushing someone away. You are simply choosing to honor your own needs alongside theirs. Too many people go through life believing that saying yes all the time makes them good. That being available for everyone, at any time, is a sign of love or kindness. But that kind of constant self-sacrifice only leads to burnout, resentment, and a deep inner emptiness. You begin to feel like you are disappearing in the service of others. You smile while hurting, agree while aching, stay while drowning. You become a version of yourself that exists to keep others comfortable, even at your own expense. Boundaries change this. They are a declaration that your well-being matters too, that your rest is just as important as someone else's urgency, that your time is not an open door for anyone to walk through whenever they please. And when you start to live by this truth, you begin to notice something powerful: peace. A kind of quiet inside you that wasn't there before. Because boundaries are not barriers. They are filters. They don't shut everyone out. They simply let the right people in. People who truly respect you will not be offended by your boundaries. They will understand. They will adjust. They will ask, not demand. They will see your limits not as rejection, but as a sign of self-respect. And those who react with anger, guilt, or pressure, those who try to make you feel bad for protecting yourself, are revealing that they only valued access to you, not connection with you. That difference is everything. Boundaries are also a test of your relationship with yourself. Do you believe that your needs matter? Do you trust your feelings? Are you willing to be misunderstood in order to stay true to yourself? Because the moment you draw a line, some people will push back. They'll question you, challenge you, even accuse you of changing. And that's okay. Growth always looks like defiance to those who benefited from your silence. You were not born to carry the weight of everyone else's expectations. You were not made to be endlessly available. Your life is not a service menu where others get to choose what they want from you. You have the right to say no without explanation, to rest without guilt, to walk away without regret. You have the right to protect your energy from conversations that drain you, environments that exhaust you, and people who only take without giving. Creating boundaries requires courage. It means you have to face the discomfort of other people's disappointment. It means being okay with not being liked by everyone. It means valuing your inner peace more than outer approval. But in that discomfort, you find something far more valuable: clarity. You see who respects you, who manipulates you, who celebrates your strength, and who only benefited from your weakness. Boundaries teach people how to treat you. They define the edges of your emotional space. They help you stay grounded in your identity instead of being pulled into the chaos of others. They are not about keeping people away. They are about keeping yourself intact. And the more you honor them, the more you realize that you were never selfish for setting them. You were simply brave enough to stop abandoning yourself. When you fall silent, when you stop responding with the urgency others are used to, when you step away without warning or explanation, something begins to happen that reveals more than words ever could. Your absence becomes a mirror. It reflects back the truth of your relationships, showing you clearly who values you for who you are and who only valued you for what you gave. There's a clarity in distance that presence often hides. When you're always there, your worth can get buried under routine and assumption. But the moment you remove yourself, people are forced to confront what you actually meant to them. Some will notice your silence immediately. They will check in, ask questions, make an effort to understand what's happening. These are the people who see you, not just the version of you that serves, listens, supports, or entertains, but the real you, the one who also needs to be seen, heard, and cared for. Others, however, will simply move on unbothered. They won't ask why you're distant. They won't reach out, because in truth, they were never connected to you. They were connected to what you could do for them. It's a hard truth to face, but one that sets you free. Absence strips away the illusions. It reveals who stayed because they genuinely care, and who stayed because your presence made their life more convenient. And when you're no longer available, when your energy is no longer accessible on demand, the difference becomes impossible to ignore. You may start to notice how many one-sided connections you were holding together. How many conversations only happened because you initiated them. How many relationships felt full only because you were pouring into them. That silence you now sit in is not emptiness. It is revelation. It is showing you who values the real connection and who only came around when you were useful, entertaining, or emotionally available to absorb their weight. Stepping back doesn't always mean something went wrong. Sometimes it just means you've finally paused long enough to see clearly. You start to realize how much of your emotional labor was unnoticed, how often your patience was mistaken for weakness, how your generosity made others comfortable, but rarely made you feel safe. That realization is not a loss. It's a wake-up call. And it's not just about other people. Your own relationship with yourself changes too. When you're no longer constantly caught up in being present for everyone else, you start to reconnect with your own thoughts, your own needs, your own silence. You begin to understand what peace actually feels like. You remember that you don't always need to explain your absence, justify your boundaries, or soften your silence to make others comfortable. The power of absence lies in what it teaches both you and those around you. It teaches others not to take your presence for granted. It teaches you how much of your time was spent on people who didn't deserve it. It teaches both sides the true weight of your energy. And sometimes, the people who once overlooked you will try to return, realizing too late what your silence revealed. That's the irony of it. People often recognize your value only when it's no longer theirs to use. In that space where you no longer chase, fix, or explain, you give others the opportunity to step up or step out. And either way, you gain something valuable. If they step up, the connection becomes stronger, more balanced, more real. If they step out, you are left with fewer people but more truth. That truth becomes your freedom. It becomes the foundation for every relationship that comes after. Because once you've seen who truly cares when you fall silent, you never look at people the same way again. Your energy is not infinite. It is not something to be spent carelessly, poured into every situation, every conversation, every person who demands it. Just like money, your energy is a currency, and every moment you give it away, you're investing in something or someone. The question is, are you investing wisely? Are you aware of the cost? Because the truth is, not everyone and not everything deserves a share of that wealth. There are people who come into your life not to give, but to drain. Situations that offer nothing in return but noise, stress, and distraction. And if you're not careful, you'll find yourself bankrupt, mentally, emotionally, even physically, wondering why you're exhausted, overwhelmed, and disconnected from your own peace. There is no pride in being drained. There is no trophy for being the one who gives the most, cares the most, sacrifices the most while receiving so little in return. At some point, you have to stop and ask yourself, what am I gaining from this exchange? Am I growing, healing, building, or am I just surviving? Are the people I give my energy to adding value to my life or quietly subtracting from it? These are hard questions, but necessary ones. Because without them, you become someone who's constantly giving but never replenishing, constantly doing but never being. Energy leaks happen in the smallest ways. The conversation you didn't want to have but forced yourself into. The favor you said yes to even though it left you depleted. The person you kept engaging with out of guilt, habit, or fear. Every time you betray your inner sense of peace just to keep the external world satisfied, you spend energy. And every time you do it without return, without balance, you lose a little more of yourself in the process. It's not just about saying no. It's about knowing your worth well enough to recognize when your energy is being misused. Not everyone deserves access to you. Not every conflict requires your involvement. Not every invitation needs your presence. There is power in discernment. There is wisdom in choosing your battles, your conversations, your relationships with care. The more you honor your energy, the more your life begins to align with peace. You begin to attract people who respect your space, situations that challenge you in meaningful ways, environments that nourish your growth. You move from being constantly reactive to intentionally responsive. Protecting your energy also means protecting your mind. What you consume, what you listen to, what you give your attention to, all of it shapes your internal world. If you're always plugged into chaos, negativity, and distraction, you're allowing external forces to dictate your inner state. That's a high price to pay for staying in the loop or being liked. Your peace is more valuable than your popularity. Your clarity is more important than your conformity. There's nothing wrong with caring deeply, giving generously, or showing up for people you love. But even love has to be guided by wisdom. Even kindness must be rooted in truth. Because when your energy is spent on people who only take, you start to believe that being tired all the time is normal. That burnout is just the price of being a good person. But that belief is a trap. You're not here to be used up. You're here to live fully, to feel deeply, to grow freely. It's not selfish to protect your energy. It's self-awareness. It's understanding that you can't give from an empty place. That your presence is a gift, not a guarantee. And the more you begin to see it that way, the more others will too. Because people treat you according to the standard you set. If you offer yourself without limits, they will take without restraint. But when you begin to choose wisely, who gets your time, who gets your energy, who gets your attention, you take back control. There comes a moment when you stop waiting for others to choose you, validate you, or approve of your journey. A moment when you look in the mirror and realize that the only permission you ever needed was your own. That's when the shift begins. When you stop chasing people, pleasing everyone, and bending yourself to fit into spaces that were never built for you. Instead, you begin to choose yourself. Not out of arrogance, but out of deep, quiet recognition that your life belongs to you, and no one else can walk it for you. Choosing yourself means stepping out of roles that made you shrink. It means letting go of the versions of you that existed only to satisfy others. It means finally asking, what do I want? What feels right to me? And trusting the answers even when they go against the crowd. It's not about isolation or rebellion. It's about alignment. It's about living in a way that reflects your truth, not the expectations placed on you by people who never took the time to understand you. At first, it feels uncomfortable. You may feel guilty for prioritizing your peace. You may doubt yourself when others question your decisions. The old voices in your head might whisper that you're being selfish, that you're leaving people behind. But that's just the echo of a life lived too long in self-abandonment. The truth is, you can't be everything to everyone and still be something to yourself. Every time you say yes to things that drain you, you say no to the parts of yourself that need care, rest, and growth. When you choose yourself, everything begins to shift. The way you speak changes, you no longer apologize for existing. The way you walk into a room changes, you're no longer looking for approval in every pair of eyes. The way you love changes, you no longer beg to be chosen. You observe who shows up with intention and presence. You no longer give your energy to people who only notice your absence, not your effort. You stop explaining your worth to those committed to misunderstanding it. Some people will be uncomfortable with the new you. They'll call you distant, cold, or difficult. But that's only because they were used to the version of you that always said yes, always made time, always kept the peace even when it hurt. Growth exposes comfort. It challenges patterns. And not everyone is ready to grow with you. But that's not your responsibility. Your responsibility is to yourself, to live in a way that honors your inner world instead of constantly sacrificing it for the outer one. When you begin to choose yourself, you start to attract people who do the same. People who don't need you to abandon yourself to prove your love. People who value honesty over compliance and depth over performance. You find that real connections don't require you to shrink or hide. They meet you where you are. They challenge you in ways that help you rise, not shrink. And suddenly, you realize that being true to yourself was never about losing people, it was about finding the right ones. You become more intentional with your time. You begin to protect your mornings, your peace, your mind. You start saying no without guilt, yes without fear, and maybe without pressure. You stop rushing your life to meet imaginary deadlines, and instead, you live with purpose. You choose the life that speaks to your soul, not the one that checks the boxes for others. You start to feel at home within yourself, no longer needing to be seen to feel valid. That's where true confidence begins, not in being liked, but in being real.